Recently, Ardern and Co were called in publicly to stand before the Royal Commission in the COVID inquiry. All four of them said no. Hipkins claims that it wasn't a coordinated effort, but I'm pretty certain it was. And the icing on the cake, which I'm looking at on Twitter right now, or on X, is that apparently Chris Hipkins is under a suppression order, which I find to be a complete load of bullshit. Like, this is just the perfect timing for this to happen, for him to say, oh, I'm under a suppression order, I can't speak publicly. Yeah, sunshine, we don't care. We don't believe you. Now, the heart of today's video, I want to speak about the more appropriate measure, the response to these sort of things. Now, recently, as I said, Ardern and Co all said no to showing up and facing the music in regards to COVID-19. As you can very easily find out now on the internet, you can research these things very easily. Ardern and her cronies lied and manipulated and mandated and destroyed the lives of New Zealanders. Naturally, many people that are awake to this fact are calling for them to be dragged in and to be put in jail, or at the very least to be made to publicly respond for the actions. And the only appropriate response really to the fact that they said no is this. You find them and you drag them kicking and screaming back into New Zealand, and you make them face the music. You make them stand here and speak to the public. You make them explain themselves. You make them try to explain themselves. They can't explain themselves out of this, let's face it. We've got them dead to rights on this. There is an ever-growing mountain of evidence around the world regarding COVID, regarding the vaccine, regarding the safety of the vaccines, regarding vaccine injuries. Even recently, more and more things are coming out. The fact that the lockdowns may be other than the initial lockdown, just to figure out what the hell we're doing. After that, locking down the country made no sense. We weren't stopping COVID at that point. All we could do was just let it into the country and deal with it. Mandating people as to whether or not they could go into certain places and basically having those that didn't get vaccinated treated as secondary citizens. Just a blatant abuse of human rights in this case. They just ignored the human rights of people in New Zealand at every step. This is all about having control, and they got their control for a little bit of time, and we need to make them pay for it. Because as I said, the lives of New Zealanders were destroyed. They continue to be destroyed, they continue to be altered, and we continue to have to deal with what's going on. Again, you just do a little bit of research. Look up people like Dr. Peter McCullough. You look up people like Dr. Pierre Coy. You look up people like Dr. Asim Malhotra. You look up people like Dr. Tully Murray Bowden. And you will find just a plethora of things going wrong with COVID. It didn't make sense at the time because there wasn't sufficient safety data that we were supposed to just take this vaccine and then, we'd be all good, everyone would be safe and protected, which wasn't the case. It was at best questionable as to whether or not we should have gone vaccinated, and we shouldn't have. No one should have gone vaccinated. I didn't get vaccinated. I got my own reasons. I'm an epileptic. I don't need more problems than I've already got. And the other methods to quote-unquote protect people, things like standing 6 meters apart, things like having masks that when you look at the box on them, they're a one-time use, which people used multiple times over and over and over. Also using masks that were just not protecting anyone at all. Complete ignorance of any alternate medicine. For example, stuff like ivermectin got labelled as a horse dewormer. I mean, sure, yeah, it can be used as that, but it won a Nobel Prize for being used on humans, so yeah, I think it's safe to use on humans. Or the fact that, to a degree, people weren't even allowed outside just to go wander around. You couldn't even go out to get a spot of sun. You couldn't go for a walk. If you wanted to go to the gym, you had to be masked up whilst working out. That was just how. You're basically asking people to suffocate themselves in a scenario that wouldn't even work anyway. I apologise if I'm rambling a little bit, but the point I'm trying to get across is that the appropriate response to Ardern and Co, to Ardern, to Robertson, to Hipkins, and to the other lady, I can't remember her name right now, but the appropriate response to these four people is just to say, we don't care, we're bringing you in anyway. And obviously with the mountain of evidence against them, you have to, at the very least, jail these people. And I am not calling for violence against anyone here, but you capitally punish these people. In a court of law, of course. Again, I'm not saying that the average citizen just gets to drag these four out into the streets and start beating them and hanging them and lynching them, etc., etc., etc. I'm saying that within a court of law, these people would be capitally punished. That is the level of destruction that New Zealanders had to face, thanks to these people's decisions. And the main reason I bring that up is an example has to be set that there will be no more tolerance of this nonsense. There'll be no tolerance for any government that comes in and either through malicious incompetence or malicious intent, which is what I believe it was in this case, they will be punished, and they will be punished harshly. One other thing that I would like to just throw out to the atmosphere there, I haven't really thought about it myself, but something that would be interesting to think about is, in case of Robertson, he left us in, I believe it's a 66 billion or 66 million, I forget the exact number. He left us in a massive amount of debt. One way to potentially alleviate some of that would be simply to jail these people or capitally punish them, whatever happens, and you just take all the assets and sell them. You take all their assets, you sell them, and you give the money back to the people, or you give the money to foundations that are going to help the people. Stuff like getting alternative medicine into the country to help with the vaccine injuries, to help with people that are still dealing with COVID injuries. Probably won't make much of a dent in that, but maybe it would help. On top of this, we also need to go around Parliament and find those that were in support of the vaccine. I don't care if those people have retracted their statements. At the time where it was necessary for them to stand up and speak for the people, they chose not to. Whether from incompetence or intent, or they had marching orders from someone else, I don't care. These people need to be dealt with. Give them large fines. They weren't the ones that were in charge at the time, so of course the capital punishment I mentioned earlier would be a bit extreme, but fine them nonetheless. Again, you can put the money towards trying to deal with that big debt that we have now. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I apologize if I didn't make too much sense in this video. The main point I'm trying to get across is that I don't really care what Ardern and her cronies say. They need to be dragged into the country and dealt with. They need to be punished. A line in the sand needs to be drawn that if you mess with New Zealanders' lives, you will be punished, and you will be punished harshly. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later.